Thank you. Got enough room.
We have no cancellations this morning. We have a tight morning. Is there any point in waiting a little bit? No, I think so. Oh, really?
Yeah.
You need us
really.
Okay.
I will, I promise, when it's my turn. I promise. I solemnly swear. But if you guys can't hear me, just give me a bit of a... Yeah, that's right. Sort of a...
Pick up all our records.
Well, instead of signal, just hug your ear or something. No. Well, no.
John, do you find the internet... Sorry, Greg, do you find the internet really slow here?
It seems a little patchy, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Did you guys stay here last night?
Did, yeah.
The password.
Gateway, all
Welcome to our very first public hearing in the city of Edmonton. I want to welcome all those who are presenting, those who are present and will present, and those who will come shortly to present. We have a full morning, and as people will come, I will acknowledge them and thank them. First of all, my name is Justice Dallas Miller. I'm the chairman of the Electoral Boundaries Commission, and I serve as a justice of the Trial Division of Alberta's Court, the Court of King's Bench in southern Alberta. We have a total of 5 commissioners. Unfortunately, one is unavoidably absent today. He will be joining us this evening, and that's Mr. John Evans, KC. But I want to introduce the commissioners that are present. To my left is Susan Sampson, a longtime resident of Sylvan Lake, Alberta, and an experienced municipal councillor and politician, and she served a full term as mayor of Sylvan Lake. Susan was named a Citizen of the Year of Sylvan Lake some years ago and received the Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Medal in 2012. A dedicated volunteer in her community with a special focus on public health care. To my immediate right is Dr. Julian Martin. Dr. Martin is a retired history professor from the University of Alberta. His degrees are from Cambridge University, and he, in his retirement, has volunteered on many committees in the Sherwood Park area. He's our Capital Region representative on the Electoral Boundaries Commission. He also has served and is serving on provincial tribunals such as the Surface Rights Board and the Land Compensation Board. At the end of the table is Mr. Greg Clark, an entrepreneur and consultant focusing on knowledge management and information. We are fortunate to have Greg as an experienced member of the legislature. He served the Calgary riding of Calgary Elbow some years ago. He also is a recipient of Queen Elizabeth Medal, and he currently serves on many boards, but the most prominent one, he is serves as the chair of the Balancing Pool of Alberta, and he consults and advises organizations relative to proper governance. He holds an MBA and the Institute of Corporate Directors designation as well. We are your Electoral Boundaries Commission. I would ask that you hear me out on some basic requirements throughout the day. Please silence your cell phones. We recognize that you don't have to turn them off, but please silence them so they don't ring. The microphones, don't worry about the microphones. Cleany Audio has made sure that that audio feed will be taken care of. And by the way, the audio version of the meetings will ultimately be posted on the EBC website as well. Hansard is recording and ultimately transcribing the events of each public hearing, and those also will be placed on the EBC website. As we get started, I want to go through a bit of, before I do that, I want to introduce someone that's very important to the Commission. Aaron, would you just stand and wave? Aaron Roth is the administrator of the Commission. He tells us where to go, when to go, and all that kind of stuff. And if you have any written submissions or any documents you want the Commission to have, just please leave them with Aaron. Just to give some background to the work of the Commission, first of all, we are an independent body established by the Legislative Assembly of Alberta, and ultimately we were appointed by the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly. Under our mandate, we must follow the dictates and the direction of the Electoral Boundaries Commission Act. This current version of the Act directs us as a commission to plan for 89 electoral districts or ridings. Alberta is expanding from 87, the current number of EDs from 87 to 89, and that will be in place for the next provincial election. Just to give you some context of our timeline, first of all, we were appointed in late March of this year. We're already 2 months into the mandate. We had some early meetings, or some meetings in April as a commission to discuss many things. We started the public hearings just last week, and we will be spending until the last week in June going throughout the province hearing submissions in various locations. After the first round of public hearings, we will, of course, deliberate, and we will work on issuing a report. A report, I don't want to call it a draft report, but it will be an interim report, which will be tabled with the Speaker of the Legislature by late October. That will become public. It will be published in the Alberta Gazette, and there will be opportunity for the public to respond and give feedback to that report. It is expected that after that report is out, we will have a further round of public hearings throughout December, January, February. We haven't specifically itemized the dates yet. Some of those meetings, no doubt, will be virtual meetings. we love Alberta. We love traveling throughout Alberta, but I'm not sure December and January is the most ideal time to travel throughout. So we may be doing some virtual meetings at that point. And then after that second round of hearings, we will then produce a final report that will be tabled in late March 2026. And of course, everyone knows that when we move to 89 constituency, there will be one member of the legislature from each constituency or electoral division. The proper terminology that is used in the legislation is the electoral division, but we often use the vernacular of riding or constituency. And of course, the voters in each constituency elect that particular member. The last electoral commission was held in 2016 with its final report in 2017. A lot has changed since that last commission 8 years ago. First of all, the number of MLAs or electoral districts has changed from 87 to 89, and the population has increased dramatically. And if you look at the bar graph, the 2017 commission used a population figure of just over 4 million. And based on that population, the average number, if you perfectly cut up the province into 87 electoral districts, was 46,697. The target population per electoral division is in that range of -25 to +25. That was what happened in 1987. If you look back at our population level, we are just under 5 million. We're using the population statistic. We're required by the legislation to rely on the last decennial census of Statistics Canada. That was issued in 2021. Again, a lot has changed since then. So we have had the benefit of information and statistics from the Alberta Treasury Board, Office of Information and Statistics, and they have given us a figure of 4.888 million currently. And I know there's news reports of a higher population, but we are forced to rely on the most reliable data and the verified data, and we are relying on those figures of 4.88. So when we use that figure and we move to 89 electoral districts, the average, if we were cutting up even size, cutting Alberta up into even size population pizza pieces, it would be 54,929 citizens or persons per electoral district. And again, the target range varies widely from 41,197 at -25 to 68,661. That is the target range. As you know, population growth has not spread out evenly throughout the province. And so our task is, given these two major changes, moving to 89 seats from 87 and considering a significant population amount increase, our task as an Electoral Boundaries Commission is to hear from Albertans and to receive recommendations as to how to allocate boundaries to provide effective representation. Effective representation is the terminology used by the courts, by the legislation in terms of ensuring fairness and balance. And in order to reach that effective representation, we must take into several factors that are listed in the legislation, that being the sparsity, density, or rate of growth of the population throughout the province, issues such as common community interests and organizations, which could include industry, culture, values of certain communities. Geographic features throughout the province is also a factor that we must consider. Communication and transportation routes and access is a factor that we can consider. And very importantly, we must work hard to create understandable and clear boundary. That is not an easy task, but that's an overriding obligation on us as a commission. In addition, one other responsibility we have as a commission is to name riding, name electoral districts. So those of you who are presenting, feel free to discuss, or we may even ask you information about naming constituents. Finally, we are tasked with considering any other appropriate factors for consideration. And I know that these characteristics can be accused of being vague and ambiguous, but we have no other choice but to follow the legislation as is written and come up with a report that fits that meets the task of effective recommendation and takes into consideration factors. Now we want to hear from you, and we will have access to all of the electoral districts outlined on the PowerPoint as we go through presentations. So if anyone wishes to have a particular riding put up, just mention that. So we want to hear from you now. Introduced everybody. Okay, as time goes by, I want to start the list of presenters, and I just, are both people in the close to the front presenting? Okay. First presenter is Mr. Neil Gray. Yeah, you. Oh, yes. You're right. You are at 10 o'clock, but you're also at 9:20. Is there a second Neil Gray in the house?
No, I had initially booked 9:20 and then I quiet time.
Okay, sorry. If your presentation is really good, we might hear you twice. Yeah, okay.
Mr. Gray, don't keep me in suspense. Are you talking about a specific riding or just in general?
A bit of both.
Thanks. And your riding is, I'll just pull it up. Thank you.
Yeah, it'll work. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Neil Gray. I live in Edmonton Mill Woods. I've lived there for about 22 years. A little bit just briefly about myself. I've been active in and around Alberta provincial politics for about 25 years. Full disclosure, my spouse, Christina Gray, is the current MLA for the riding of Edmonton Mill Woods. And I work for the Alberta NDP at my day job. I'm what they call a digital officer, so I do a lot of work with information that pertains to the 87 districts. So I know them pretty well. And then I'm just going to also declare that I am a member of my local constituency association. I'm a treasurer there, so I have experience both at the local and sort of macro level. So what I'd like to talk to you about, first of all, I'd like to thank the Commission for their work. In a previous life, I worked for the RCMP. I know what it's like to travel the province for work. I know you folks are away from home for a lot of this, so we all appreciate your efforts in that regard. So let's talk a little bit about the challenge you folks have of drawing maps and creating boundaries. There's a lot of competing interests in the Act that you have to pertain to. So one of the things that I think is really important is doing as little change as possible to the existing maps. And I say this to you because I find people, it takes them a long time to engage with the electoral process to understand what district they live in, who their representative is. And the more we change these things arbitrarily, the more we disconnect voters from their representation from their district. So I would encourage you, everything else being equal, to make as few changes as possible. Now, of course, that's going to compete with your other needs. You've already mentioned that you have to add 2 new districts into the mix, and you also have to work to balance the population of the district. I'd like to point out that the slide you showed already that showed the numbers for plus and minus 25%, that's a very wide number. You're dealing with something like 40,000 to 70,000 folks per district. I would encourage you to keep that as close. You keep all 89 ridings as close to the median as possible. I know the Act has some special allowances for certain kinds of special districts. But in speaking with people across my life, friends, family, people engaged in politics, Albertans have a core commitment to fairness and the belief that most votes count for about the same. People want to know that their vote counts the same as somebody in the next town, the next village, the next city. So if you introduce a bunch of districts that are 40,000 and a bunch that are 70,000, you're really showing people that their vote is not equal to other votes. So I would encourage you to keep the median population as close as possible. You had mentioned district naming, and I had done a written submission. I will reiterate here on that topic. And as somebody that works with these district names quite often, the practice of naming districts for politicians or other historical figures, I would strongly discourage that. The name is a chance for you to connect the voters where it is that they live, where it is that they represent, or their representative is from. So wherever possible, I would encourage you to stick to names that have geographic description. The current practice seems to have involved, especially in rural districts, naming up to 3 of the largest municipalities. Example ridings being Old Didsbury, Three Hills, Rimbey, Rocky Mountain, House Sundry. Those sorts of names are highly descriptive. People instantly know whether they're sort of in that general catchment or not. Same for the city names where you have the practice of Edmonton such and such or Calgary such and such. I would encourage you heavily to go with area names such as Edmonton Millwood, Edmonton Ellerslie, Edmonton Glenora, where folks know where that is intuitively. Some of the names like Calgary Klein, things like that are invoking more of a historical figure, Joe voter has no idea if they live in Calgary Klein or not. So again, discouraging that factor. So having got those thoughts out of the way, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about South Edmonton and in particular Edmonton Millwoods. Got a slide on the screen there that shows you Edmonton Millwoods is an area in southeast Edmonton. It's made up of a handful of community leagues, and each community league has a handful of neighborhoods, typically 2 or 3 within it. One thing the Commission chose to do last time in the interest of numbers balancing was to split up some of these community leagues down to their neighborhood level. And that has posed a real challenge. Edmonton in particular.
Can I just stop you there?
Yep.
I'm having trouble. It says Millwoods, Ellerslie. There's 2 separate EEs with those names. So what do we have on the screen?
Sure. So this,
is it number 38?
Kind of. This is an image. I got this, I believe, from the Edmonton Federation of Community Leagues.
Oh, sorry.
So it's a little bit of a, yeah, this is my image.
Okay. Sorry.
And you're right. There is Millwoods and Ellerslie. And where you see those words on that image, there's like a pink band there. That's the Anthony Henday Drive, right? And the transport corridor. So it's kind of a separating line there between those 2. But you're right. That is a confusing image.
So Anthony Henday is the bottom boundary of Millwood.
That is correct.
Okay. Good.
And broad strokes when talking about Millwoods, what you can see a little bit on this map and better on some that I unfortunately wasn't able to get PDFs of, is that Millwoods has a lot of natural boundaries. On the north side, you have what's called the White Mud Drive and a lot of commercial property beyond there, so there are no residences to the north. Again, on the west side, you're bounded by Calgary Trail and Gateway Boulevard, a large strip of commercial area. And then on the south, you have the Anthony Henday Drive, the transport corridor. So there are these 3 natural boundaries, if you will. And we just because of when it was built, the population values like the housing costs and the neighborhood functions as a pocketed community. People live there, they work there, they play there. And in each of those community leagues, there's a lot of similarity. The whole area was largely built in the late 70s, early 80s. So it functions very well as a community of common interest, is what I would say. Obviously, you may have to play with things to get the numbers right. I was looking on your site, and the growth is estimated to have brought the riding basically to where it was last time. I believe it's 7% above the median number. It was at the time of the last boundary, and now it still is. If you decide you have to increase the Millwood riding, I would encourage you, on this image, you'll see it's hard to see, I apologize. There's a community called Ridgewood Community. That's the one that was split into separate neighborhoods in the last outing. And that's been confusing for the folks there because on one side of the street, their MLA is Edmonton Meadows. On the other side of the street is Edmonton Millwood. So if you're looking to add to the Millwoods riding, I would encourage you to just bring all of the Ridgewood Community League into Edmonton Millwood.
Do you have a sense of the population change on that?
I do. It's going to add, I want to say about 4,000 to add the Minchow and Bissett neighborhood.
Just for context, our information says not percentage, but the population was 50,265 in 2017.
Okay.
And using our population figures today, it would be 58,726. So an increase of about 8,500.
Yeah, I saw that too. I do find that puzzling. I will just let the commission know because Edmonton Millwood, unlike its neighboring Meadows and Ellerslie ridings, is all pre-existing housing stock, and there hasn't been a lot of new build there. So the notion that we've added 10,000 people is a little bit puzzling, given that it's a fully developed community. I don't know how much your 2024 data is based on sort of general statistics, or if there's some actual census work behind.
There is.
There is. Okay. All right.
But I understand the puzzling nature of it.
Yeah,
My in-laws lived there, and so I know that community from 40 years ago.
There hasn't been the trends of infill that you see in the more central neighborhoods of Edmonton. They haven't hit us yet. Things are coming, but the number did surprise me a little bit. So yeah, I would encourage you to think about Millwoods as that singular community. If you do need to expand, I would encourage you to expand by fulfilling the community league, or conversely, if the number needs to come down, again, look to those community leagues that are already split, and hopefully you can move those into one riding fully. Speaking to the neighboring districts, Edmonton Ellerslie, which is currently undergoing a by-election, we probably all saw the signs on the way in here. If you look at the drawings for Edmonton Ellerslie, quite choppy at the parts above the Anthony Henday. There are little spikes as it has part of a community league called Southwood, and then it skips the next one, and then it pops back up in an area called Laurel. I think that was done largely for the numbers work, and it makes it a very disjointed community. So my recommendation personally would be to find a way to get all of Ellerslie, or whatever you choose to call it in the new design, to be fully south of Henday, because there's not a lot of commonality between neighborhoods south of Edmonton Henday. You're talking about stuff that was built 2010 or later largely. And when you go north of Henday, you're talking about communities that are 30 years older, very different housing stock, very different demographics. So I think that's largely what I came here today intending to say. Oh, I will add this fact, just pulling back out to big picture again. Looking at your 2024 numbers, I did some quick math and just took the Edmonton seats and the Calgary seats, summed those totals and divided it by the provincial total. And I know you're adding 2 seats, and the easy thing to do would be to add 1 to Edmonton and 1 to Calgary, and the numbers probably justify doing at least that. But when you actually divide the numbers, you see that Edmonton and Calgary probably both deserve closer to 2 more seats each. And so I would encourage you to look at, there's a lot of urban districts I noticed on the map you showed quickly earlier that are, extremely below the median. So maybe there's a chance somewhere in the province for some amalgamation of districts, and that you can get Edmonton and Calgary a fair number of seats so that their voices are accurately reflected in the legislature. I know that's been a contentious issue in the past, how much do you give to the cities, but I think getting them up to where the numbers are today is got to be the bare minimum, because we know they're just going to keep growing. And whatever you decide has to govern us for probably 10 years. So I would skew toward at least the mathematical minimum. Okay. And I think that's everything I came to say to you folks. Again, appreciate your work. If you have any questions, happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. I'm going to start with Susan here. Any questions?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. That's very helpful, and I like the groundedness of what you were talking about. And it's a useful thought about the community leagues. And yeah, and there is a very few of the Edmonton ridings have the same population in them, and so it's apples and oranges sometimes. So it's a useful thought about community league boundaries and about housing stock. I agree with you that, as it were, old Millwood is different than a lot of what has happened in the last 10, 15 years. But I'd be interested in your thoughts about how we deal with the inner city, because they are below the median in population. They're also losing electors. I mean, Edmonton City Center has lost 3,400 electors since 2020. It's also 60,000 people. And so you can see reflected there new immigration, students, all sorts of things like that. But just all of which is to say, there's a very distinct difference between ridings at the periphery and those in the center. I think it's most marked in Edmonton. I don't think we see that characteristic in Calgary as much. But the inner core of Edmonton is hollowing out. So there's got to be some adjustments, whether it's nip-tuck or what. Sure. But, you know, that has to be one of the things that we juggle as well. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, you folks can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Act stipulates that your basis for things has to be based on population, not electors, right? So whether a district has 50,000 people and only 25,000 of those can vote versus 40,000 is irrelevant to you. You're carving it up based on population, not on electors.
Any other factors?
Yeah. So then I guess what I would say is you may have to make changes to Edmonton City Center. I don't have deep familiarity with that riding, even though my place of work is there. But I spend most of my time living as I do out on the south end of town. So my focus is largely the ridings in the south of Edmonton. If you have to make tweaks and adjustments in the center, it would be interesting, because I hear what you're saying about the drop in electors, but my gut tells me with all the new towers that the population must still be going up even as the electors are dropping. So I don't have access to the data. That's just a gut feel on that.
All right. Thank you.
I do have access to the data, in fact. So we've got City Center is actually up 5,000 population from 2016 to 2024. And yeah, one of the things I think I agree with you, it is population. That's so in both our Act, as well as when you look at the reference cases, Supreme Court back in 91 and some of the Alberta references, it ultimately works out. The population is what we're working to. And in my view, that's for a number of reasons. Children don't vote, even if you're a new Canadian and don't have the legal right to vote. You perhaps go to post-secondary or have kids in school or use health care, and all those are provincial issues that I think are very relevant to our community. So a couple of questions for you specifically about Millwood. You'd mentioned the Ridgewood community, but you also mentioned Henday. Just so I'm clear, as unfortunately not an Edmontonian, the Ridgewood community straddles both sides of Henday, is that right? Or
no, sorry, whatever I said there, it must have got a little confused.
Okay.
Ridgewood is actually quite central to Millwood, and
on the east side.
Yeah, of Old Millwood, it's on the east side. That's right.
And sorry, and I just want to make sure I understand, is Henday an important natural boundary? Do you feel it should?
It absolutely is,
Okay, I just want to make sure.
because the development is quite different in terms of timelines when it was built, property values, and just the demographics of the communities that have come up around it. So yeah, I would suggest it is a significant.
Okay, yeah, we're obviously going to have to do something about Ellerslie, because it's the second most populous constituency in the province. So.
Yeah, I tried playing around myself with the notion of what you would do. I mean, you could easily, given Ellerslie's overpopulation and Edmonton South and Edmonton Southwest, you could just drop one of your two new ridings on that south of Henday and easily carve it up to meet the numbers. But of course, you only get to add two. You've got that problem in other parts.
Yeah. Thank you.
We've kept you longer than we should have, but I have one question. It's a general theoretical question. Blended or hybrid riding. When I look at Edmonton South, Edmonton Ellerslie, and we take your proposition that, yeah, we're going to have some ridings at Edmonton, it would make sense, or it may make sense, that those bottom new ridings would be blended, hybrid.
What do you mean by that?
Part urban, part rural. And it's a question I'm asking almost every presenter, by the way.
Sure. I know that the government did change the rules, so you no longer have to factor in municipal boundaries. I think that's a mistake. I think what you'll find is that the characteristic of folks, let's say, that live in and around Leduc versus those in Ellerslie, is very demographically different. Those folks are living a different kind of lifestyle. And I think as somebody who's married to a representative, it would be a real challenge for a representative to equally represent a riding that has both that urban and rural components stacked together. I think it's just, I think it would increase the challenges tremendously. I know that the commission, I believe, received some feedback of proposals to do that, maybe some of the cities in southern Alberta. And I think that would be a real mistake. I think you're basically going against the community's interest specification in your act if you start trying to do a lot of those hybrid type riding. Okay. So I would discourage that heavily.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gray. Really appreciate it. Hope you can stay for the rest.
I will.
Okay, thank you. The immediate next presenter has not arrived, but there's someone else, Corey. Okay, Corey, ma'am, could you just identify yourself and spell your last name?
Corey Longo, L-O-N-G-O.
Okay, please come forward.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning. So as mentioned, my name is Corey Longo. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the Alberta Federation of Labour. Thanks for having me this morning. Thanks for the opportunity, and thanks to all the work of the Commission. Just full disclosure, I'm bringing greetings on behalf of President Gil McGowan. He was called away urgently, so I'm filling in for him this morning, so I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as Neil is. But having said that, I'm happy to be here regardless. So
he will not be presenting later today?
No, he won't be.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So a bit about the Alberta Federation of Labour, and the reason why we're here discussing this today is in 1912, unionized miners and tradespeople came together to create the Alberta Federation of Labour. For over 110 years, the AFL has fought to defend and advance the rights of working people. Every union and union member is affected, for better or for worse, by a broad range of economic, social, and political forces. With that in mind, the AFL is deeply interested in public policy. We advocate for conditions that improve the lives of workers and their families. I'm here today because the AFL has made an official submission to the Electoral Boundaries Commission. We did this because we believe that workers are best served when democracy is in good health. For democracy to be in good health, it is essential to have fair and free elections. Our concern about the process that the Commission is following this year is that the government of Alberta has launched it too early. Given the explosive population growth Alberta has experienced in recent years, we believe it would be more responsible to wait for data from the 2026 Canadian census. We believe that the Commission will conduct its work responsibly and diligently, but we're concerned that the government, by launching this process prematurely, made the task more complicated than it needed to be. So why does this matter? Alberta has the fastest growing province in Canada for 6 quarters in a row. We have led the country in interprovincial migration for 10 quarters in a row. This is a population surge that the government encouraged through its Alberta is Calling campaign. But now people are here, and there are problems caused by a lack of preparedness. There are not enough doctors, not enough schools, not enough teachers, and not enough affordable homes. These issues will likely be a major focus in a future election. Albertans need to know that every effort will be made to ensure voter parity the next time citizens get a chance to exercise their democratic rights. We know that effective representation is a requirement for the Commission's work. A proposed electoral division must not be more than 25% above or below the average population of all the proposed electoral divisions. There are some limited exceptions to this, but overall, those are the rules the Commission must abide by. We are concerned that if the Commission relies primarily on the 2021 Canadian census data, the most recent data available, there could be a significant number of electoral divisions that are above the 25% average. These commissions are typically struck every 8 to 10 years, and the data selected in this report will have to last around the same length of time. So the consequences of the decisions made by the Commission will last for a long time. The only way the Commission can get close to an accurate picture of Alberta's population is to use population estimates given by the province of Alberta. Comparing Canada's 2021 census of population for Alberta with the most recent Alberta population report, we notice a difference of about almost 700,000 people. If those 700,000 people had their own city, it would be the province's third biggest after Edmonton and Calgary. According to Dave Cornway, a well-known observer of policy and communications manager with the United Nurses of Alberta, there are 9 ridings that have had a population growth between 20 and 62% since the current boundaries were drawn up in 2017. 4 of those ridings are in Calgary, 4 are in Edmonton, and the remaining one is in Airdrie Cochrane. These are huge changes, and we at the AFL sincerely hope that the Commission's final report will accurately reflect this. It is essential that Alberta's working families have confidence in this process. Given the rush of the Alberta government in launching the Commission's work, it is essential to do extra diligence to reassure all Albertans that every voter will have an equal chance to have their voice heard. The AFL will be watching with interest on the Commission's work. This matters to every Albertan that will be voting age in the next provincial election. It's about fairness. Our electoral boundaries must reflect the vibrant 5 million strong province that we have become. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much.
I just have a quick question, and I recognize that you're not the first person who is on the list, nor probably the first necessarily wrote over. So I empathize and apologize for this. However,
yeah,
there seems to be an inherent contradiction in your submission, and I noted this when I read the written submission. On one hand, wait until we have the 2026 census, which then has quite a significant lag, which would mean we're very unlikely to get it done in time for the 2027 election. Elections Alberta has a lot of work to do in the background.
Right.
And also we have a substantial number of constituencies that are far over the plus 25% limit as a result of the population growth.
Yeah.
So those are really two essentially entirely opposite sort of ideas. I guess maybe you could perhaps talk.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a perfect answer to the situation. I think we're responding to the facts of the situation, the current situation that we're in. Unfortunately, as mentioned, I do think that this is a hasty response, and I think that things have been planned a little bit more accordingly with more, foresight. We could have maybe avoided this. But yeah, I don't think there's a perfect situation. I think we're here as the AFL just to to share that concern.
Thank you. I would like to speak a little bit about your claim that we're using the 2021 census. We are not.
Okay.
And so comparisons to it are interesting, but they're not persuasively relevant because we are using the 2024, July 1st, 2024 numbers, which are an amalgam of federal, provincial, and municipal data sets from which they are the most recent amalgam of data sets by which you can identify uniformly all the ridings in the province. That sounds a little tricky. There are more recent estimates, but they're partial. It's quite frightening, actually, what a sausage-making exercise a census truly is. And so one's expectation that a census would be a census and that's that is, I'm afraid, dashed by actually talking to the demographer. So I think we as a group had a lengthy discussion about the making of a census, which was quite alarming, it must be said, but only if you're using bleeding edge numbers. But stable, uniformly applied across the province numbers can be achieved only in some slight retrospect, and that's how we decided on July 1st, 2024. So if you wanted to revise your arguments with that in line, I would encourage you to do so.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I kind of picked up on that when Neil was speaking, and it wasn't quite in line with the notes that I was provided. But thanks, I will let our research team know that. Thank you.
And in terms of the point that we're too early, we have no control. We have our legislative marching orders. We're over 2 months into our project. We can't put the brakes on. We're limitless. We don't have that power.
Right.
So watch for our reports.
Yeah, here's what it is. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to echo my colleague's comments with regards to it was a good presentation, but with the numbers skewed with the wrong date. So I don't want to belabor that, but I also want to say that if we face an election soon, then the representation for the voters is right out of whack. And even when we're finished in 2026, those numbers already will be out because of the growth in the province. And we don't meet again. Well, we will never meet again, but the commission will not be set again for another 8 years. So it's an ongoing problem that, you know, I think if anything, and that's outside of the scope of the work we do, but I think that might be something to have to look at. With growth the way we're seeing it in the province, maybe the push should be to look at it sooner rather than every 8 years.
Right. That makes sense to me.
That's just a comment.
Yeah.
And thank you for your time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. And especially, like, I don't necessarily see the growth slowing down, right? And so this is going to be like an ongoing issue and like having to adapt more quickly and move more promptly in response to it. I think it's necessary.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much, Ms.
Thank you.
Longo. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
And please feel free to stay for the rest of the presentation. Okay, our schedule brings us fast forward to just after 10. Mr. Cyril Turton. Did I pronounce that first name correctly?
Yeah, Earl, like Earl with an S.
Okay.
It's a weird name, for sure.
Not at all.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, first of all, for commission's work in this very important work. It is appreciated more than you know. So again, my name is Earl Turton. I'm the current MLA for Grove Stony Plain. I've been serving since 2019. Along with my experience as an MLA, I have served for 3 terms on City Council for the City of Spruce Grove, working with many intermunicipal committees throughout the entire capital region, which gives me some fairly intimate knowledge, especially on the electoral boundaries, the way traffic and population movement around the donut especially. Most of my conversation will be focused on the area of the province that I think is one of the coolest in the province, which is just west of Edmonton. And I'm also open to help provide some input or feedback regarding possible discussions on the donut surrounding Edmonton. So specifically on my riding of Spruce Grove Stony Plain, my riding has been one of the fastest growing ridings in northern Alberta over many years. Our current municipal population for the combined areas, the urban areas of Spruce Grove and Stony Plain, is approximately 64,000 people. And in the interim report that was put out in 2017, it was clearly articulated at that time that with the population growth in our area, riding of Spruce Grove Stony Plain shouldn't actually be put together. But in the final report, it was the decision of the commission to revise it and to put these two urban communities together. Over the last couple of years, again, as I mentioned, Spruce Grove and Stony Plain have continued to grow, far exceeding the population allowances put forth by the commission, and this is something that's also shared by many of the suburban communities outside of Edmonton, all fast growing. The Duke Beaumont is another perfect example of that. So regarding just a potential submission, and I have put this forth in a written submission as well with more articulated boundaries, so you can reference that if you need. But I would recommend that the riding of Spruce Grove Stony Plain is split. And so I'm going to talk about the two different parts. Again, for the reasons that I've said, the population is growing too quickly. Will continue to grow out of alignment from the benchmarks that have been articulated by the commission. So first of all, I would say the riding of Stony Plain should more closely mirror and be attached to Drayton Valley further to the west. This would mirror the federal riding of Parkland. This riding is currently being represented by a single MP right now from the borders of Edmonton, including Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, and Drayton Valley. So I think that there would be some good synergies there for the riding of Stony Plain to be attached to Drayton Valley in this regard, because electorally, there's already a tradition of that. More specifically for the riding of Spruce Grove, again, just due to the high population growth that we are experiencing in the community, what I would recommend for the commission's approval is to have a Spruce Grove Edmonton hybrid community. I think this makes the most sense about having a hybrid riding for a suburban community of a city like Spruce as well as Edmonton. This riding would include approximately about 5 minutes north of Yellowhead to Highway 633, which is also known as the Villeneuve Highway, come south on Highway 44 to the Adam Creek, and then would include the Edmonton subdivisions right by Winterburn Road, west of Edmonton, south towards Enoch, and then it would use 628, which is the White Mud extension, as the southernmost boundary all the way over to Spruce Grove. This would put the approximate population at about the mid-50s, or sorry, low 50s, which would allow room for growth. The Trumpeter area on West Edmonton, as well as the city of Spruce Grove, would then have the ability to grow into the same population level as other ridings in the province. Again, giving it some potential room to grow over the next couple of years. The Yellowhead Trail acts as a natural conduit for residents in that area to be able to go north and south to enter Yellowhead Trail and then enter Edmonton. And as many people will know, is that residents in that area, the high density subdivisions, are also included in the Spruce Grove part of the phone book as well. So many residents of Parkland Village, as well as those subdivisions, are already closely connected to the city of Spruce Grove for education purposes, recreation, and there's natural synergies for those residents that also work in the Atchison Industrial Park as well. So I think this riding can easily be represented by one MLA, ties in the natural travel corridors of the population, and yet allows room for the growth of that area to continue to be in line with the other new subdivisions around the province of Alberta. And so I know you probably have some questions, and so move it over to the committee.
Spruce Grove alone, what's the population?
Approximately 44,000 people right now.
44.
So the area between Spruce Grove and Edmonton is one of the highest density country cluster subdivisions if you can imagine, subdivisions of 1,000 and 2,000 people. So there is a significant amount of high-density acreages in that area, included with the Trumpeter area that is to the northwest of the Winterburn and Yellowhead Trail. That added population there would also help with Spruce Grove, Edmonton, into that normal population rate.
Can we get the map up? Just for context, we're going to try and get the map of the current map.
I forget that not everybody knows that riding west of Edmonton, Backdoor Hamlet, I did too many years of going to high school in this area and bush parties.
While we're doing that, would you mind just ask sort of a general question?
Sure, no way.
So and first off, thank you very much, and appreciate you being here. Appreciate the mission as well. I guess one just a technical question. Some of the things you've mentioned there, are they reflected in your written submission in terms of which sort of specifics around where the map should go in your opinion? They are. Okay, perfect. We've got that. I'm just curious if you can characterize community of Spruce Grove itself and the community of Stony Plain. Why do people choose to live there? What is it about those communities that makes them unique?
And so I don't have half an hour to answer that question, correct? Okay. No.
You'd never ask the mayor / past councilor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, Spruce Grove is growing for the same reasons that other suburban communities outside of Edmonton and Calgary continue to grow, like Cochrane, Strathmore, Pestamere, Leduc, Beaumont, Spruce Grove. We have all the facilities that young urban families wish to take advantage of. We have the advantages of coming to either Edmonton or Calgary for services, and yet we don't have the big city issue. It still has that small hometown feel. So, for example, a house that is in Spruce Grove is approximately $50,000 less than on West Edmonton, which is only located 7 minutes away. And so a lot of families that are thinking, hey, I can either have a house for $50,000 less or $50,000 more home. And the average age is much younger in Spruce Grove than it is in Edmonton as well. So again, these just all add to the quality of life. Stony Plain is very different than Spruce Grove. You know, I always joke that you could take Stony Plain and put it by Hannah or really rural Alberta and it would fit right in.
Could you? It would make our job.
It would. It would be probably a little cost intensive, you know, and so, but, you know, in Stony Plain, you have the angle parking, you have that very much the small town feel. Stony Plain is the second largest town in the entire province. And I will leave it as a political trivia question for you to decide which is the biggest town in the entire province. But at 20,000 or 22,000 people, Stony Plain is significantly big. And so, but the Spruce Grove continues to grow and outpace most of Northern Alberta when it comes to growth projections. And that is why I am recommending that it would work in this fashion.
Thank you very much. I was intrigued by your remarks about growth in the area between Spruce Grove and Edmonton, and you characterize it in two ways. One, about growth potential, and I take it you mean residential as well as light commercial and the like. And on the other hand, you characterized it as being a highly densified country acreages community. Are both of those true at the same time or in the same corridor along the Yellowhead?
Yes, no, absolutely. A fantastic question, Dr. Martin. So the urban area of Spruce Grove, as well as the urban area that is in West Edmonton, the Winterburn, Trumpeter areas, are really the two ends. And then in the middle, you have the industrial park of Ashton, which both areas continue to go to work, and as well as the low density acreages that are just beside the Yellowhead. If you go between Edmonton and Spruce Grove, you'll see heading to the east, those high density acreage subdivisions there, as well as a new economic corridor, which will be Highway 628. This is the White Mud Extension, and that is going to be one of the next big areas for residential growth in this area, and that is a key reason and potential economic driver for Spruce Grove. Another point I just also want to mention, there is precedent. to have an elected official representing Edmonton as far west as Stony Plain. 2006 Boundary Commission that was put forward, I believe, at the time by Prime Minister Harper. We had MP Ronna Ambrose that represented as far into Edmonton as 170th Street, all the way west to Stony Plain. So there already is a precedent in the donut surrounding Edmonton to have federal elected officials represent chunks of Edmonton and then represent the suburban communities outside. This has been done in the past. You look, for example, I know the previous presenter talked about Edmonton Southeast. You look at Mr. Lake as well, has a reputation and a history of representing South Edmonton as well as Beaumont and Leduc. James Rajat has represented Devon as well as Southwest Edmonton. So this has already been a clear and proven background and precedent of having elected officials representing the outskirts of Edmonton, but including parts of Edmonton, as well as the suburban communities just outside of Edmonton.
But federal is a completely different kettle of fish in terms of hybrid or blended riding. So you've come up with a solution to deal with population, but you're bumping up into a big philosophical issue of the hybrid or blended riding. What do you say to people that say, no, we should not, in order to maintain communities of interest, we have to maintain urban riding and non-urban riding?
Solid question. It's one that comes up in municipal land quite a bit, and to kind of use the experiences that I've heard from multiple mayors before. Residents don't know where boundaries are. They go where the services are, they go where the trade corridors are, they travel past those imaginary lines on the map to access services that they need for their families and businesses. And that is why, for example, you have many communities that is quite seamless from one community to the other. You look at maybe other than the Aspen Hen Day, but there's not much of a difference in terms of the demographics between St. Albert and Northwest Edmonton. You look at the differences between Edmonton, Ellerslie, and Beaumont, it's 5 minutes. I can get from my home in Spruce Grove to the legislature in 28 minutes and 13 sets of lights. Not that I've counted once or twice. But when you really look at the movement of people, see, that is the bigger question. Where are people going for services? People in Spruce Grove go to the Costco by River Creek Casino. That is only 6 minutes away. When it comes to arbitrary lines on a map that move and grow, those are less of a concern to where families are going, and hence that's why I talked about the Yellowhead Trade Corridor. That's where people access. That is how what ties people together versus having those lines on a map. And to be quite honest, I think it actually works out better for legislators to have more rounded views from representing different communities, representing different interests. And I think it leads to better decision making at the legislature by having those hybrid blended rides.
You may be surprised to know that we heard last week no to blended riding several times.
Well, I'm sure there's quite a few different opinions on it, but I mean, I'm an elected official advocating for blended riding. I think it would lead to better decision making and better representation at the legislature.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out today. I struggle. I would like more information on why we should look at taking Spruce Grove and adding it to Edmonton, because I'm concerned that the residents who choose to live in a smaller community that is a town, I understand that they will do all their business and some of their major services within the city of Edmonton, but they don't choose to live in Edmonton. And I wonder how they feel when they want to be represented, when there's such problems and concerns in, I'm not sure what the pressures are in Spruce Grove, but if it's health related, if there's a lack of money being injected into the schools or something like that, how will their voice be heard when you're balancing big city issues with a small town community where those people chose to live there because of the lifestyle?
Yeah, no, good question. But again, as I talked about, people will go where the services that their families require, where those facilities are located. So, for example, the most popular sport in Spruce Grove, no surprise, is soccer. The largest soccer center that is used by Spruce Grove residents is in West End, Edmonton. And so West Edmonton Mall is 12 minutes away from the house, from the borders of Spruce Grove. Again, when you look at the Yellowhead corridors, when you think about in terms of the corridor approach, residents between Spruce Grove and Edmonton, they're constantly traveling back and forth. You look at some of the highest traffic density patterns is between 16A, potentially 628 if we never get funding, that's my own issue, and then the Yellowhead Trail. But again, there's free movement between those two communities. It's no different from people in Beaumont using services in South Edmonton, people in Leduc or South Edmonton going to the industrial park. You know, so the movement of people 5-6 minutes is really not much bigger. I can get to Edmonton faster from my home in Spruce Grove than I can get to the other side of Stony Plain. And yet the majority of travel patterns for people in Spruce Grove is towards the east, towards Edmonton. And many of the people in West Edmonton travel westward toward Atchison, which is Alberta's second largest industrial park for employment opportunities. There's transit and buses that go between the two areas. So I would say that they are as connected as you can be without actually being part of the same.
What would the residents of Spruce Grove say if Edmonton annexed them?
Well, according to annexation, you can only annex for residential growth. Having the industrial park in Atchison separating Spruce Grove, Stony Plain, and West Edmonton would prohibit annexation under the current rules. But that being said, you know, I think there's the reason we have separate identities for communities. I think this is a vast mosaic of different municipal identities, and I would support keeping those specific identities. That being said, I think that there is always opportunities to grow together. I served on the Transit Commission for the city of Spruce Grove, worked very well with West End councillors, Andrew Knack, Mr. Walters in the past as well. And so I think that there's a lot of work that has been done about those seamless interactions between the two communities, but I am very appreciative that we were also set.
Thanks very much.
Any other questions? Well, thank you very much, Mr. Turton. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your well-thought presentation. And if you can stay for the rest of the session, that would be...
I'll stay as long as I can before I get called into the ledge. So, thank you very much.
What do we got? Okay. Jennifer Klimek? Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Okay, thank you for letting me. I've never spoken at one of these before, and I'm just a retired citizen. I'm from Edmonton Gold Bar, that's where I am. I don't have many concerns about the boundaries of our riding at 11 Flow where it is, but I also have a rural background. I grew up near the Vermilion area, and I have a lot of family out there, so I realize the political differences between urban and rural. And I think that's my biggest issue here is making sure we deal with those. I guess I'll start out by saying I value my vote. It's important. I want it to have the same impact and weight as every other vote in Alberta. And I think sometimes when you get ridings too dense, my vote doesn't carry the same weight as someone in rural Alberta. And I know it's a challenge and it's your job to figure out how to do that. And I recognize because of distance and things like that, rural ridings cannot have the same number. But I think we have to try to deal with that and maybe more, just don't let the urban ridings get too big that we're so dilute. So that's my one comment on the size of the ridings. Having listened to the one before me, I disagree on hybrid. And that's where I want to focus on is the sense of community. I spend a lot of time, my family's very political and we argue over everything. And I keep hearing, you urban people don't understand us. We're misrepresented, no one knows. And I think there is some truth to that because I still spend a lot of time with my family in rural Alberta, and their concerns are very different than mine. They're worried about their schools closing. They're worried about the hospitals. And we're worried about, why am I sending money to you to run the school for 50 people? And so I think if you start hybridizing them and bringing them into a bigger riding, I worry that their voice will get so diluted that the majority will overwhelm them. And I think they need represent.
Sorry, who's they?
Oh, the rural people.
Oh.
You know, okay. I'm going to speak on behalf of my family out there. That if we start bringing in smaller groups where they're completely amassed, say you take a little town and put it in with a big one, we're all economically think, like, why are we sending money to keep your school open? And maybe there isn't, but I think when you have an MLA representing people that have the same issue, and it may not all vote the same, but all the MLAs are addressing that, or candidates are addressing that same issue. It's not getting diluted where I'm worried about Edmonton because that's where the majority is. And the little guy no one understands this issue, where if that little guy has 5 candidates before, they might disagree on how doing it, but they're all looking at that issue. So I think you have to look at the nature of the community to make sure that those who, and I go back to rural areas or racialized communities, if you split them out too much, they get diluted. So you should bring them together, or if they're all represented by this similar area, that they can all address their candidates with their issues. And then that candidate, the elected one, could go in and forcefully fight for those issues. He's not dealing with the large urban population that doesn't want to spend money, and he's got this little pocket that says, wait a minute, what about us? So I think that's my big thing. And I don't think you're determined by where you go to shop. I have a family that drives to Edmonton once a week, but they're worried about their hospitals, their whatever. So the fact that you are going into you're driving to a municipality to do your economics or maybe your stuff, it still doesn't deal with the issues at the table. So I think you have to be careful about saying this community goes here, so they're part of it. I think we have to keep the representation, so at least those issues are not being diluted. And I guess that's my biggest fear. When you keep grabbing, because there's less and less people up there in rural Alberta, we know it, but we've got to protect those interests, that they're actually being heard at the ledge. And I think that's essentially what I have to say to you. I don't want to belabor the point, but I think we want to keep the city ones not so big that there's, your MLAs representing way more people and all of that. So maybe we need more cities. We have to. And it was interesting when I came in and I heard what you said, Ms. Sampson, about the timing. Because I kept thinking, well, we are changing. We've got to deal with that. And we also have to anticipate where we're going. And it's a challenge for you folks to do that. But we do know the cities are likely to get bigger. And so how do we deal with that? And I would hope that somehow, I guess my biggest fear too, I watch a lot of TV, is I would hope that we never gerrymander here. We create things that make no sense geographically. And the only thing you can think of, we want to pull that community in here because whatever reason they vote whatever way. And please, please, please do not let that happen. I think you've done a good job, but please, I think that's so important that they do represent the people. That's all I have to say to you.
Thank you. If you're alluding to gerrymandering in the USA, you notice that it's elected representatives that do that kind of work in their legislatures. So our whole system is built to muffle that down as much as possible. I have a question for you. You're a resident now of Gold Bar.
Yeah.
And in the light of your remarks about not diluting rural voices and the like, what's your thought about it within the city of Edmonton? Knows that Edmonton McClung, Edmonton Riverview, Edmonton Strathcona, Edmonton Gold Bar are all below the mean population at this time.
Okay.
And there's loads of reasons why that would be the case. It's not pathological, but it's a quite normal thing to the inner parts of cities to not grow as fast as the peripheries. But because now you're happy with your riding, but are you happy with the thought that you get a representative on fewer voters and fewer population than the people at the periphery? How would you recommend that we manage that?
Maybe the periphery shouldn't be so big. I mean, that might be why we need more urban riding. If I were living in the outer area, I'd be saying, yeah, I take some of us and maybe pull in there or whatever. And I know the edges of ridings they move all the time. But I do agree. I think we have to try and keep them. And that might be that my riding becomes a little bigger. But I guess you also face the problem. I mean, I look at Gold Bar. We've got a lot of industrial area. It's like it stops at Argyle Road for quite a ways. So, I mean, that's your challenge, I guess, is how do you deal with that? Do I have something in common with the people of Mill Woods on electing? Hopefully I do. And I don't think urban stuff gets that. I think our concerns are more similar within an urban as an urban versus rural. And I just worry about, I guess, more if you take the edges of the city and grab those people in, they're going to get lost or could get lost or diluted because they're concerned about it.
So then if we have to do a bit of nip and tuck in the inner area, that seems reasonable to you?
Yeah, I'm not going to lay awake at night worrying about that. Because, I mean, and I think a lot of it is for us, we have good access to our MLA because it doesn't matter where he is. I drive all over the city. I do worry about, and that's a problem for rural areas, and that's one of the reasons I guess they are, have less population. I mean, but I suppose with we now have better ways, like with digital stuff, we do have better ways for them to communicate. But I know my family never sees their MLA anywhere because it's too far for them to go, So I guess you have to work with that too, and that's your challenge.
What electoral district is your family in?
They're in the Lloydminster area.
Oh, okay.
And so it depends where you are in the periphery on that, But I know they have very different concerns about what's happening in Alberta. I mean, they're two different worlds in many ways. There's different issues. And I would hate to see them lose that voice because they get pulled into somewhere else. And I would imagine, and I mean, I just listened to the individual before me, maybe it's not that much difference on the periphery of Edmonton, but I tell you, you don't have too far to go out of Edmonton to realize it's a different world because of agriculture and smaller schools.
Any other questions?
Just one comment. I want you to know that we have heard in the previous road trip last week that residents are concerned about access to their MLA when they live in the rural areas. And as a commission, we have that ability to recognize some of these key challenges when we write the report. And I think there was, at this time, we heard that loud and clear, and you may see that come out again in the report with some suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your presentation, and please, you're welcome to stay, and I hope you stay for any other presentations. Rob?
There is none of the any other pre-break? Oh, well, it's perfect timing. We're scheduled for a break at 10:20.
Great planning, Mr. Chair.
So, so we'll be back in 10 minutes, 10:30.
are Mr. Dale Sikorsky.
Yes.
Okay. And you're scheduled to present later this morning, but let's move you up sooner. And please come forward. And we've already had a morning of a few very good presentations, and you're the first person to present after our break. So thank you for coming.
Well, thank you. Hello, my name is Dale Todd Sikorsky, and I am a resident of Edmonton Southwest. My husband and I moved to the Southwest community of Keswick in 2022. Prior to that, for 32 years, I lived and worked in the city of Camrose. And one of the things I loved about living in Camrose was that it was a city with a small town feel. It was wonderful being able to have a career in a city where I also had a family doctor, dentist, grocery stores, and easy access to other services and community resources. And when it came time for me to retire, my husband and I wanted to move back to Edmonton. We're both from here originally. We wanted to find a place where we could kind of capture that city with a small town feel. And we found that in Keswick, one of the many communities in the area known as Edmonton Southwest. It's spelled S-W-I-C, pronounced Keswick. I guess it's an old English name. And it's a very nice area, and I consider it akin to being like a small city. I'm very fortunate that I was able to find a family doctor, a dentist, and veterinarian all within walking distance, relative walking distance. And I also have easy access to community services like a rec center, grocery stores, clinic, and banking with just a short drive. So it's really nice. And I'm sharing my experience with you because I wanted to give you my personal perspective as a citizen who's lived in two urban centers, both of which were surrounded by large rural areas. I witnessed changes over time and seen the challenges that come with population growth. And I feel this is all pertinent to the Commission's work when considering how to create the new electoral divisions in Alberta. I also understand that the Electoral Boundaries Commission Act revised and updated the factors that the Commission can consider when drawing new electoral boundaries. And so I have two requests. Number one, I would ask that this Commission consider the significant population growth in Edmonton Southwest when drawing the boundaries. And number two, ensure that any new boundaries continue to respect the existing urban boundaries. During my time in Camrose, I saw that city grow in population from around 13,000 to over 20,000, and this was over the course of 30 years. That population growth was managed well by the city of Camrose as they carefully planned and improved the municipal infrastructure and services in response to this slow and steady increase in population. And we know that the city of Edmonton is expected to grow in population, but it will be significantly greater and at a much faster pace. According to the city of Edmonton's Q1 2025 economic update, the Edmonton's population grew 5.7% between 2003 and 2004, which was its fastest pace since at least 2002. And the Edmonton Metropolitan Regional Board anticipates the Edmonton region to be the fastest growing in Canada, reaching 2 million residents by 2040 potentially. Edmonton Southwest is also growing very quickly. It is not just one of the fastest growing areas in the city of Edmonton, it's also one of the fastest growing in the province of Alberta. And the provincial electoral riding of Edmonton Southwest has the third highest population growth in the province. And I've witnessed this growth firsthand with the record number of new homes being built and families moving into the neighborhood, along with lots of road construction, new schools, and new businesses. And based upon the significant population growth that is likely to occur in Edmonton Southwest, I feel it's important that we have good representation to ensure that our communities will be well served and well represented at the provincial level. Historically, rural voters in Alberta have been overrepresented in Alberta's legislature, and Alberta should ensure that its legislature seat distribution accurately reflects the population of Albertans who live in fast-growing urban centres like Edmonton Southwest. My second request is that any new boundaries continue to preserve community integrity by respecting the municipal boundaries in the city of Edmonton. And then drawing from my own personal experience again, I'd like to compare the city of Camrose with the surrounding rural area of the county of Camrose. So while the city of Camrose's population steadily increased, the county of Camrose had a population that remained relatively unchanged during most of that time. And the city of Camrose and the county of Camrose did have agreements and frameworks in place for accessing services such as transportation, water, emergency services, and recreation. And they collaborated well for the most part. However, despite the collaboration, from my experience and perspective, it was clear there were very different priorities at play and challenges for each of the communities. In the city of Camrose, we were dealing with issues such as housing density, public transit, and in the rural communities, it was often about land use and road maintenance. In Edmonton Southwest, the priorities are very different from those in rural areas. Our population growth has led to an increased demand for new schools, better transportation corridors, and a greater need to build a new hospital. The rural areas are looking to protect environmentally significant areas and attract new businesses and investment. And I realize that these are just a few, and that there are many more priorities for each of the areas. And some of these issues are much more complex than that I am prepared to speak on. And I know that they require proper consideration and attention. And I feel that combining urban and rural areas then would make it incredibly challenging for any elected MLA to effectively represent such disparate interests. I wonder, would an urban elected representative truly understand the lived experiences of a rural citizen? And vice versa. I don't think so. I can also imagine that citizens would have greater difficulty accessing their representative's office and resources if it were not located within relative close proximity to their residence. And by placing an MLA office beyond existing urban-rural boundaries, citizens would also lose that important connection that is really important to democracy and fair representation. So, I'm not keeping track of the time. I know it's 7 minutes, so I'm hoping. That's okay. Okay, so in closing, I am a citizen of Edmonton Southwest, and I'm advocating to ensure that this commission follow the principles of good governance and democratic fairness. I understand the importance of the work that this commission does. I'm very grateful to have the opportunity to speak here and to ensure in some small way that Albertans have an electoral map that justly represents our growing population. So my formal request is that the commission adhere to the principles of representation by population while also respecting the boundaries of municipalities. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sikorsky. And here. Do we have the Edmonton map? Let's bring that up. Yes, yeah. Any questions starting on Greg Zante?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Justice, and thank you so much for being here. And unfortunately, not being an Edmontonian, I'm not that familiar with the neighborhoods and the communities and sort of natural flow of things. If you were sitting on this side of the table and were tasked with redrawing Edmonton Southwest, which is by my understanding, at least in the top 1, 2, 3, 4, is the fifth fastest growing of our constituencies. It's over the 25% variance, so we know we need to do something. Mm-hmm. Do you have any suggestions about what belongs with what, or perhaps even what doesn't belong with what in your constituency?
I don't have any specific suggestions. I know that the river does separate the two portions because it's very long.
Yeah.
And so that seems to be a natural physical division. to me. I know that there is more growth going up north of the river out towards the west. And then in the area that I live in, which is south of the river, heading south, there's also growth in Keswick and Glenridding, for example.
And you're south of the river, Keswick?
I am south of the river, yes, almost to the very limit, you know, where Rabbit Hill is. Yeah. So
I think I know where it is, but I can't really translate it onto the map. But anyways,
oh, I should have brought a map.
Yeah.
Oh, you've got it.
Okay.
While we're trying to find your writing, I would just tell you that Keswick is named after a village in the English Lake District.
English Lake District, like
Yeah.
Windermere.
That's right.
Oh, it's all part of the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the same developer's consciousness at play here.
Okay. All right. I just got back from England, so I was in Chichester and Norwich, and of course the W is not pronounced, so I figured there was some kind of a connection there with, yeah, the UK. Awesome. Thank you.
And sorry, again, while we're getting this up, if you don't mind, you talked about blending rural and urban, and I guess I don't know the Edmonton and the surrounds all that well, but what I see here is Devon is right on the doorstep there of Edmonton. But it seems like it's quite rural and it looks like agricultural outside of that, not a lot of population.
Yes.
Can you maybe just speak to that? What would happen? I don't live in Devon, obviously, but if it were to incorporate parts of outside of Edmonton, what would the impact of that be? Is there a significant difference then between Devon and Edmonton? If there is, can you tell us how you characterize that?
You know, I'm not as familiar with Devon, having only driven by, you know, because of the proximity to where I live. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've only looked at some of the Parkland County, you know, priorities that they're working on in that area. And I see Edmonton Southwest, like I said, I have a very strong stance about the need in Edmonton urban areas. In terms of the rural, I haven't, as I mentioned, a deep understanding of the need there. I guess I'm concerned that by extending what is already a very large riding further to the south, or, you know, and including a large urban rural area, I think it would just become much more difficult for people living in that area to have access to an MLA who would be able to, you know, listen to their concerns, to be available if, you know, there was a need for representation or issues to come up. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me ask you, seemingly might be an irrelevant question. Do you own a vehicle?
Yes.
Is it fair to say that some people in your electoral division may not? And I'm just guessing based on the fact that you said you're within walking distance of all your services.
Yeah, that worked out very nicely, that I can walk if I need to. I know that we do have a little bit of transit. Because we're very far out, I know that some sections are not well served by transit. So there are people, there are sections that are very nice and walkable, and people can get to a transit station relatively easy, I think. But yes, because it's also very long, and we have Terwilliger Drive that extends out, there's a lot of traffic there as well, because there's a lot of people who commute to different parts of the city. And I know some people who work in the north end, and even people who work south in Devon as well, so outside of Edmonton.
So are there, to your knowledge, are there people, residents in your community, Keswick, that can survive without the households without the? That's fine. If you don't know of any, that's fine.
Perhaps.
My second very random question.
obvious that something has to be done with Southwest. Patently obvious. 2016, the population was 46,000. 2024, 76. So it's increased by 30,000. Yeah, it is one of the faster growing. Do you have any suggestions for names? Because we can't call it Edmonton South and Edmonton West and divide the name that way. Any suggestion for a name for one or two of the ridings that will come out of that?
You know, I'm not sure. That's a good question. I haven't even thought about,
we have to give names, so that's why I'm asking.
yeah.
If you can think of some, don't hesitate to send them in.
So I know that some of the names, like I see Edmonton McClung, presumably that's named, you know, after Nellie McClung.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if there is any precedent to naming after significant people who've made a contribution.
I don't think we can name it Edmonton Sikorsky.
Yeah. No, I'm not advocating for that, but that's very kind of you.
Okay.
But yeah, perhaps something like that. I'm not sure.
But that's a challenge we have. So think about that. And,
okay.
Yeah, just a comment, there might be a play when renaming electoral districts to stay away from individuals, historic individuals.
Oh, okay.
The previous presenter it said it well in that it should be identifiable to the people who live there.
Yeah.
Because you can appreciate as a newcomer, who are those people, Rutherford and such.
Right.
You know?
That's a very good point. And you know what? I think you're absolutely right. I think to build that connection between the citizens and their constituencies, I think it's really important that it's readily identifiable.
Right.
So I would be in support of that.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know, the other thing, living in a very large urban center, how often in, let's say the last year, did you physically see your MLA?
A few times, actually. I did have to go to see him for a notary. I had a legal document, so he provided notary services. I did see him, and last year was my parents' 60th wedding anniversary, so I got a certificate.
Nice.
Yeah, so that was very nice, yeah. And then I think I've seen him at a couple events as well in the community.
Right, easy, you find him or her easily accessible, and the constituency office is easy to get to, those kinds of things? Yeah. His name is Nathan If. He's a very good representative, very nice fellow, and I really appreciated, being able to access his the services his office provides, So,
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for your presentation. I wanted to ask where you spoke warmly about the local access to a bunch of services. Now, is that along Windermere, at that whole area just south of Henday, which is a big shopping area?
A little further south, there is, Ellerslie Road.
Yeah.
So on Ellerslie Road, that's where my doctor and my vet are located. Just before it changes to Hiller Road, there's a small commercial section there. And my dentist is just 2 blocks further south.
Well, the reason I ask is just because I'm curious about, the build out of commercial and professional services in there. Do you think it has grown adequately to support the mushrooming population, or do you find yourself still driving into Whitemud somewhere?
So like I said, I'm very happy. I have a family doctor that is in walking distance. I cannot believe my luck when we moved here. I know there are other people who have to travel further for family doctor. Dentist, not much of an issue. That's fine. Rec center, I'm very lucky. The Terwilliger Rec Center is only about a 20-minute drive maybe from my house. And it is a great service for me and my husband. Banking, very close by. Grocery stores, lots of services there. The businesses that are opening up, very much in support. I'm very grateful. We have a variety of restaurants as well. Like Edmonton Southwest is a wonderful community to live in. because it just has, like I said, kind of like a small city. We don't have to travel very far outside. Specialist appointments and hospitals are the time when we would have to like travel longer distances.
If I may just follow up, this then adds color to your earlier remark about finding a community feel, just as you had when you were in Canberra.
Yes.
Do you find, I mean, it's obviously a barrier, and you mentioned the river in that respect. Do you ever find yourself connecting with, as it were, the northern half of your electoral district?
I have been there sometimes for coffee, meeting friends. So it's not a barrier unless the traffic sometimes on the Henday gets very busy. So because I'm retired, I don't have to travel during rush hour. So usually when I get together, it's not really an issue very much.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have time, so I'm wanting to continue the conversation. My mental picture, you mentioned Terwilliger, is that this electoral district is a mix of older established neighborhoods, and there must be a lot of new development itself. Is that right?
Yes. So the area I live in, that's where there's a lot of development. North.
And you live south of the river, right?
Yes, south of the river. Closer to the river, those homes have been a bit more established, like in Windermere. And as we've built out further south, those are where the newer communities are. When you go north of the river, there are some communities like Jameson Place, I think. They've been there a little bit longer, probably since the 1990s or so. But now, as they start moving further west, Rivers Edge, Edgemont, those places are very new, and they are growing very quickly. Yeah, there's a lot of development going on that way. So,
good. Well, thank you. Any more comments or questions? Well, Mr. Sikorsky, thank you very much for coming and for participating, and your stay and hear other presentations as the morning goes by.
Yeah, I think I will stick around.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. So our next presenter, Mr. Jasvir Dale. Thank you very much for coming. And as you probably were notified, we had a time limit for presentations, but we're not enforcing that so strictly because we have time. So please take your time and identify yourself and tell us what you want us to hear.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I think I should actually introduce myself.
Please.
Thank you. Jasvir Dale, you said it right. I'm the MLA for Edmonton, Alberta.
Oh, okay. Welcome.
Thank you once again for the opportunity to speak today. Before I offer my comments, I want to sincerely thank you. Thank the Alberta Boundary Commission for undertaking this important task and for the opportunity where voices from across the province can participate and provide feedback. Electoral boundary redistribution is cornerstone of a healthy democracy. It ensures that representation keeps pace with population growth and that every voice, regardless of community, background, or geography, is effectively heard, respected, and valued. It's essential that this process be fair, transparent, and accountable to Albertans. No Albertans should feel their voices has been lost or diluted due to boundary changes. Communities, whether urban, rural, or ethnic, must not be merged in ways that erode their distinct identities or shared interests. That's why this Commission's work must go beyond numbers and take into account the cultural, linguistic, and social ties that bind communities together. The redrawing of electoral maps must reflect where people actually live and where the province has seen the most rapid growth. I don't know if you are recording this conversation, but I can submit my written submission as well.
Oh, please do. Please check with Mr.
You
Roth.
have to take all the notes. Thank you. Municipal boundaries, communities of interest, and natural geographical features should all be considered carefully to ensure effective and equitable representation. Community identities matter. That include existing municipal boundaries, community organization, First Nations reserves, native settlements, and city neighborhoods, particularly in Edmonton and Calgary. These boundaries help define who we are and how we connect with our neighbors. It is important that they remain intact wherever possible so that residents feel their voices are genuinely reflected in their elected representation. Geographical features, existing road systems, and the practicality of maintaining understandable and coherent boundaries are also key. The Commission should prioritize grouping communities with shared values and challenges, cultural, economic, and geographic, so that the resulting ridings are representative and effective. I want to draw a little bit of your attention specifically to the riding of Edmonton matters, which I have had the privilege of representing for the past 6 years. As the last boundary review, South Edmonton has experienced significant growth. New neighborhoods and community leagues have emerged, and the area's population has surged. Today, Edmonton Meadows includes 11 neighborhoods: Astor, Bissett, Daly Grove, Jackson Heights, Kinsky Gardens, Larkspur, Maple, Mencho, Silverberry, Tamarack, and Wildrose. These are supported by 5 community leagues: Burnwood, Ridgewood, Edmonton, Southwood, the Meadows, and Fulton Meadows. The community of Laurel is part of the Meadows municipal area, but not that. Those communities share deep cultural ties, family networks, and social cohesion. It is crucial that these bonds are preserved and not fragmented by boundary changes. When I ran in 2019, Edmonton Meadow was already one of the most densely populated and multicultural ridings. Since then, it has grown to nearly around 20-25% of the average population for the riding. The average age is just 36, and a large percentage of residents, almost 20%, are between the ages of 5 and 17. More than half of the population speaks language other than English at home. To serve this diverse population, my office employs multilingual staff, uses ethnic media to engage the community. We have had to take a unique approach to budgeting and outreach to ensure we can meet our residents where they are culturally and linguistically. The needs in this riding are significant and distinct. Educational infrastructure is urgently needed, especially new schools and early learning programs tailored to young, diverse population. Healthcare access must include culturally appropriate and multilingual services. Immigration support is a major issue, and our office acts as a vital bridge for newcomers navigating challenges in their own language. Small businesses are booming. When I was elected, there were a few commercial spaces in the area. Today, new strip malls have emerged across the riding, symbolizing vibrant local economic growth. These entrepreneurs deserve continued and appropriate representation. I would just like to note when I came into the office, my predecessor was living outside the boundaries, like not in the riding, but there was no choice. But now the choice has been emerged like immensely. I would like to conclude. In summary, I ask the Commission to ensure that Edmonton Meadows remain whole, intact, and fairly represented. The community has grown not just in numbers, but in identity, cohesion, and vibrancy. Fragmented, it would diminish the collective voice of thousands of Albertans who have built their life here. Once again, thank you for your time, your service, your commitment to process that truly reflects the democratic values of the province.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Well, it's interesting. And when I look at the map, and it is the map that is up there, you've got lots of room for growth. Am I seeing that right? The part to the east? Is there an outlying structure plan in there yet, or what are they proposing in that area?
There is still like a lot of room, not as much as we had in about 6 years, but there is a room. You see to the far east, close to east of 17 and more closer to the Anthony Henry side. You know, the Astor is quite a bit developed already. Tamarack Common is there now.
Yeah.
You can probably see on the map. So right now it is there, but there is still room. But it won't be probably as much as it has grown in 6 years.
So
thank you.
Our numbers show that in 2017, the population of your constituency was just under 52,000, 51,776. And according to the population figures we're using from 2024, it's up to almost 68, so 67,736. You're okay with those numbers?
Yeah, it's just around close to 70.
Okay, so if we took, and I'm not sure you checked the numbers, but I'd be curious to know if we took 17th Avenue, and don't take anything from what I suggest, but this is a scenario, and we made that the eastern boundary, what would be lopped off in terms of, I think I'm reading that 17th Avenue.
17th Street.
17th Street, okay. If we use that continuously as the eastern boundary, you know what population would be lopped off?
Basically, you know that the multicultural fabrics of this riding will be compromised big time.
With that boundary?
With that boundary. So there's more of like, if you are looking in that way, I have the older neighborhood to the west of my riding. That have a bit of a unique, different identity compared to the riding east of 34th Street all the way to Edmonton. And part of Laurel, you know, they share very similar values and similar challenges and requirements when it comes to issues like mediation and newcomers, communities battling.
And you mentioned languages other than English. What's the predominant 2 or 3 languages?
Predominant is Punjabi.
Okay.
And there's Hindi, Urdu, Tagalog, Mandarin. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. No? Great.
I'm curious on just a slightly different angle. You'd mentioned MLA budgets, and I guess building on what Justice Miller was talking about in terms of a variety of different languages. One of the things, though, we've heard is if we're going to bridge the large geographic areas of rural Alberta with the need for perhaps multiple constituency offices to enhance access to those constituents, this is outside the scope of our work, but I guess I'm just curious from your perspective as an MLA, do you feel like there's a need to enhance rural MLA budgets to accommodate for the vast geography they have versus the relatively small geographic areas in the cities, or is there another consideration we should be?
I can speak actually for my ridings. It's not about the geographical area only, like it's about the people who live, like population and the numbers. And as I spoke, the identity is important. So we have multiple ethnic media outlets, right? So this is a unique need in this riding in the city or in the province. I had 2 challenges when I actually got in the office. The area was newly built. The real estate was very high. So compared to some of the other ridings, I have to work with budget. And the second is that to outreach our communities, right? So the large geographical area probably wouldn't have that. Like that could be like 5-10 times maybe larger than the area. but might not have same challenges. I got to make sure my part-timer speaks, is multilingual.
Right.
Yeah.
Full-timer is multilingual. And we reach to all the ethnic media outlets. We are in the community of every, language-speaking background or the culture they share. So one of the examples, even, I'm from Punjabi background. Then the struggle of the Filipino community was struggling to see, they wanted to see where they reflect in the city as cities, cultural fabrics, where they are, where they can see themselves. So my office was the one, I started, it's not in my writing, but it is in my community. I started, writing that campaign, and I guided them. And eventually, in 2 years after, they have their own how we fought with the community is part of,
Excellent.
society.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I, like everyone in this part of the province, have been watching the growth of this district with excitement and a little bit of anxiety. And I'm sure that the work in your constituency office is never slow. But I want to ask you a really hard question, because you have argued that we should respect community interests and boundaries. Fair point. But the population is such that it attracts our attention from another reason as well. So you put us between a rock and a hard place. So I'm going to throw it back to you. If we had to do some nip and tuck on where the boundaries are, how could you possibly do it?
Feel free to go to the map and show us too.
So what I see, the two things I could probably, think about it. My neighbor writing, Melwood's probably is not growing as fast as my writing has been growing, right? And
Sorry, which one?
Melwood's.
Oh,
Melwood's.
yeah. Yeah, I thought I heard you say Ellerslie, and I don't.
Ellerslie is outgrown actually.
Yeah, okay.
So I don't exactly know their statistics and their numbers, but in case, they end up expanding, the only place they have to expand is to Edmonton East. And I also have, different community identity. When you see, I don't know what those areas are called. It's Web 23rd. It's west of 34th Street, or it's between 34 and 50th Street. There's some area, so that can be looked at, but it will not, if we leave the east part of the riding intact, it will not affect the identity and cultural identity of the riding and the shared value people will enjoy.
No, I'm going to press you on the point, because the area you pointed to is just east of the hospital, right? But what about 23 Avenue it just seems like a strange little thing that was done mathematically. Obviously, it's going to mess with a community of interest, no matter what we do in Millwood generally. So I'm asking you a very difficult question. So this area down here, this area here.
Yeah, definitely, that can be looked at it, but I don't know what's going to happen with Laurel. I also sometimes see how funny that boundary, then Laurel just was taken out in this part. I live also there, but just by south of Canada.
You can't take that off.
But everyone, if you look at the ridings, identity and their challenges and their need, their voices can be effectively heard, definitely. that can, something we look at, you know.
Yeah, I suggested a very hard case,
Yeah.
but you've argued for communities of interest.
So the other thing has
They're
happened,
quite densely
Yeah.
connected in terms of foot.
something like,
Something has to give.
something, yeah, I know. So the interesting thing has been happening for the past 2-3 years, because I have 2 gurdwaras, you know, around this area. One is in north and one is south of 23rd. A lot of new population is settling around these places. But still, like, if you have to look at something, you know, when you look at like how to divide the population growth equally into the riding, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you go to east side to, you know, create the boundary of 17th Street, that wouldn't work at all. So definitely you have to look at something.
So your preference would be to his suggestion rather than mine?
Use 23rd Avenue as sort of a cutoff.
You can.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
These guys are from Southern.
Really don't.
Just anything else?
Did you say you lived in that? Did I understand you?
I live in that area. I live in that.
Oh, well, I just don't see that possible, Jen.
We apologize in advance.
No, the constituents and electors have the preference. You know.
If we have any real estate agents presenting later today, we'll be sure to pass on information on to you. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Deal. This is very helpful. While all presenters are equal, we do really value presentations by the members of the legislature because you deal with us on the ground and you give a perspective that we value very much. So thank you for coming and your presentation, and we'll look forward to the written version of that.
Yeah, thank you.
Make sure that Aaron gets that.
Thanks a lot.
And please remain for the rest of the morning if you can. I'm not sure if we have any other presenters. No? We have one. About 4 that no shows. So they will be marked absent in the final report card.
Truant.
Okay.
All right.
Yes, please
Yes.
help us out. Wow.
I'm going to take this ball, actually. Look at mine.
You don't want anybody to read your notes.
Well,
Writing
that's
in
not my
bold.
design. It is a side effect.
Wow, that is an interesting, that's an interesting, we should start having a conversation about how we're going to start the process with, and maybe start. We don't have a lot of deliberation days.
Yeah.
Not that I see us redrawing early, but just get some ground rules. Take that corner off.
So which is that? So
The northwest corner.
This here?
Yeah, right up here.
Okay. Let's start. So we start here and go through there.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
That current boundary. To what is that? 50th Street.
Yeah, if you went down 50th.
All the way to.
All the way to 23.
Trying to get that actually reasonably accurate. We don't grab what we don't want. 23 is that's 34. So
Oh, it's
keep going.
sir. And that's to the current boundary on the south.
She's 23 out.
Yeah.
23.
You
and
go
then
in.
Okay.
To 16.
What
Down here.
Oh, all the way down to there. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, I don't think.
houses they don't want.
We're playing with our mapping tool.
Yeah. They have given us wonderful technology. We're going to use it. You can actually take the 8.
Yeah, and just go
all the way.
all the way to
All the
the
way to
freeway.
So that's, do you want me to go south here?
No, just go straight in.
Oh, even though we're going to kind of cut that all off?
Sure.
Okay. Back. But even that's,
I see just, there's not much up here, but that's what. Well, there you go. It's just a drafting.
that is, that's bigger. We just made it bigger. I'm not surprised because we grabbed a bunch of, we actually ended up about 20.
But what if you just took off everything below the left-hand side of 23?
So just this, that little chunk there? Yeah. So, well, let's just do it in.
So that's
in-
23 is the entire.
Yeah, so actually, I can use the other one here just for a second. So this is the current, well, the current one we know is, so this is currently Meadows is 55, call it 60. So.
It's 67 on ours.
Yeah, so you just want to take that, just take this little off?
Looks like the province of Alberta.
Okay, so this is just for reference, we'll just take this and see how many are in here. Properly. House on the wrong side of the street.
When you're
So,
putting the
Feel free to
dots
come up and take a look at what we're doing
Yeah.
here, sir.
So we've got a GPS mapping tool provided to us by the good people of Elections Alberta.
I was looking at.
Yeah, I probably should just cast my screen. So we're just curious, this will tell us, come on,
with the population.
what the population is of this area. There's only 3,600 people in that little spot. Yeah,
Well, we'll get
so
this
that's
number
tricky
down
because
and-
we're talking about 68,000 give or take. So that's not quite enough. So I guess, what are the kind of natural or the kind of community fault, breakpoints, if you will? Major streets.
South of 23rd, no, 38, south of 38. Let's see, how does it work?
38.
That was, before even that was part of Millwood's riding. South of 38, all the way to 34th Street.
Okay, so that's not, really, 38th is not a really, well, I guess it's sort of, if we just kind of, is that sort of a break point there, or is it?
Yeah, that's very quickly, like, this used to be part of Millwood's at 125.
This part here.
All the way to 30.
Right across.
Oh, using this, but that's interesting. So this is sort of, even though it's not a really major road, that's sort of that 38th is a bit of a boundary. Okay.
So 34.
So if we cut this part then as well as that bottom bit there, it really could take that.
Everything less than 34?
Yeah, you get to see how many people.
Just out of curiosity, sort of here.
Or you're gonna have to come along the old creek and then.
So just go across, the old creek, let's go through the middle of the creek here.
Arbitrary
Yeah.
division here.
So now how far east do I want to go? Just to 34?
Oh,
Geographic.
Very specific, I think. The word you're looking for is so this, make all this, just say.
Yeah.
A little, Ryan's gonna have to be a little deep in there, make sure I'm at the wrong side of the street. This green space, I still want, probably have a few extra houses. Grab, right?
This is 50th, this is 50th Street?
yeah, that's got to be.
Millwoods Road.
No, we gotta go to 50th Street.
50th is all the way up to 50th. Okay, let's start again. So we want to go basically 38th to 34th?
50th Street up to 34.
Okay.
50th Street up to 34.
Okay, so start at 34 and 50. And where do we, so just sort of maybe kind of give me a sense. So that's 34th and 50th, that's
Yeah.
38.
So this is 34, right?
34 is right here where that's right
Okay,
there.
you can cover this. This is already part of Millwood's riding.
That's right. So yeah, this is Meadows here.
Yeah. This is Meadows too.
This is not. This is what's next door to Meadows. Is that Millwoods?
The one next to
Yeah.
it.
Oh, well, there's actually 3 constituencies here. 1, 2.
Oh,
Yeah, this is,
okay,
Right now?
Yeah.
No, I got you.
Yeah.
so this is just the neighborhood adjacent
Yeah.
to
You're right.
Grayna.
Yeah. So I guess the important question, I think, is which sort of communities of interest, either be they multicultural or try work at the hospital or sort of have a general.
Yeah, the multicultural community have needs of east of 34 and north of 38, Jefferson Heights.
Okay. So what if we were to just out of curiosity, go straight down? So straight down from Yellowhead, straight down 34th. Is 23rd a natural? So just out of curiosity, let's just say we draw a rectangle. Just out of curiosity, whoops. What if we just did that rectangle? So that's 43. So it's a little too small, but we're not 100 miles off.
If Laurel goes in this,
Sorry,
how does it?
what is 43? What's remaining? or what's
43,000.
blue?
This is what's blue. So this
This Esther is not part of it.
Okay, so if I was to add this corner,
Yeah.
what if I went all the way down to the
Sure, yeah.
Henday?
Yeah,
Yeah, and get the number up.
All right.
Do,
It's nice,
yeah,
a nice
34
square
all
as
the way
well.
down.
So then Henday is boundary on one side and then.
Wait, on the other, 34.
Yeah,
Just a nice big rectangle.
wait, you're in the next subdivision. You're in the next.
That's all right. We need to bite a chunk off that anyway. So that's 67. Now we're back up to the same problem we had before.
What if we took that?
Take the square out. Take this
Yeah.
and keep this, but take that out.
Yeah, take
Okay.
that up.
This is the trouble with this program. Once you make that decision, you have to start.
And so this is this other one, but it doesn't. I'll work on that. So
And
we're gonna
take
go
the
here
rest all the way in, yeah.
and then keep all this.
Yeah, and go all the way up now. Yeah,
34.
to 34, we're stopping like this.
Right there. Look at that. All right.
Now-
That should do it. 43 again.
Wow.
So this is obviously a densely populated area. But
This
then,
chunk is dense.
yeah. So
Just cut it in half.
no, but is that sort of a natural community? Like, what if we just kept going on 23rd out to here?
Mostly my office is right here. This whole community come to my office. to
Okay,
get
so what if we did
this
the other way? What if we did down from, what is that, 34th? What if we did down from 34th,
And
so we
then,
did sort of this part,
yeah,
right? And we would definitely be taking in potentially some new, but what's south of here? Ellerslie. Well, we need to bite a chunk of Ellerslie. Like Ellerslie is, I have no idea how we're going to do this, but yeah, so we're going to probably start here and just go this way.
Classic three-body.
Indeed, which is a great show, by the way, if you haven't seen it. What's that? It's a show called, I think it's an Apple. Different topic for another day. So if we're to keep sort of common communities together, obviously the Henday feels like a very natural boundary. But I just sort of drawing very crude lines here. Something like that, right? Just something like that. It's a very crude, but.
It doesn't break against the major avenues and streets, no matter how you configure it. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. So it's very frustrating in some respects to get the numbers down.
Yeah.
Right?
What about break on the far 17th Street Northwest? If we cut that off, that's not enough to get us where we want to be.
No, because
And then it strands these neighborhoods, so.
That's right. You want those ones together. Going south. Well, let's make it a little bit bigger. 50th, 23rd. That's not 53. That's a little close to that.
That's getting in where we want.
So what's the number?
So that's again, that's
54.
very general. That's 50, what's our average?
55.
Our average was 54. Yeah. So I think we could potentially go just grab this piece off.
Yeah.
Like that. Not actually a lot of that. Take this little corner out 34. Is that a logical?
Yeah, that is already off, right?
Yeah.
No, that's,
Close.
oh yeah, that is off. Yeah, but we
So
could
take
take it
that.
off this new draw.
Third. Over. Up. Bingo.
There we are.
Oh, well, that was easy.
And the number
So
is?
that's exactly average.
57, almost
A hint below
58.
average. That's 57.7. So that would be within a few percent of the average.
Above, yeah,
So-
and then that,
I just.
Great said. Yeah.